Okay, welcome everyone to the Poudre River Fest. This is our last presentation for our day 3 of this year's festival. This year we did a hybrid version of the festival, so we have lots of great, amazing virtual content, and then we have some really great, safe in-person activities as well. Today our theme is everyday water. So really the idea is for us to discuss the ways that water are a part of our everyday life. And our next presentation is a kind of a master class in Northern Colorado beer. So we have the presentations From River to Glass, the importance of a healthy river for great beer. The Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed is going to lead this panel for you all today. And I'm jealous of whatever Carol's drinking right now. I'm sure it's really great. The Poudre River Fest is organized by several different groups in the Fort Collins community. These are the organizations that are behind all of the activities that are taking place with the Poudre River Fest this year. And just a reminder, proceeds from the Poudre River Fest go to support restoration projects on the Cache La Poudre River. So if you're interested in learning more on how you can get involved, or if you'd like to donate, please visit poudreriverfest.org. So I will stop sharing my screen and I am going to pass it over to Megan to do some introductions and get us started with the panel.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Megan Maiolo-Heath. I'm the Communication, Outreach, and Marketing Manager for the Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based here in Fort Collins. We do forest and river restoration work throughout the entire Poudre River watershed, and currently heavily focused on Cameron Peak post-fire restoration, but we have handful of other projects as well. I'm very excited to moderate this panel today. We've got Karla Baise with Odell Brewing, Cochran, owner of Horse and Dragon Brewing, and Cody Reif with New Belgium Brewing. And I'm sure you all know how important water is to our beer. So we're excited to kind of chat about that today. I know it's one of the main ways I stay hydrated. So I'm going to kind of start off with some questions here just for the whole panel. And also thank you to the panel for joining us. We're really excited to have you guys here. So if each can kind of just spend a couple minutes discussing with us how the Poudre River is important to you. We know beer is important to you all, but how is the Poudre River important to you? So we'll start with you, Cody.
I mean, the Poudre River is like very important to me. I was born and raised in Fort Collins. I've lived here my whole life. Went to Poudre High School, as a matter of fact. So it started at an early age, you know, camping and fishing in the canyon with my dad are some of like my greatest memories. I still am an avid fly fisherman. I was fishing yesterday at this time on the Poudre River. So if you want, you can always generally find me on the Poudre River on Wednesday afternoons, and I always have extra mountain time in my cooler for just in case somebody needs one. So if you see a guy who looks about like this fishing on a Wednesday afternoon, you know, get in his cooler. You know, I proposed to my wife at Roaring Creek, which is a hiking trail on the Poudre. So it's been a huge part of my life and is all the time. You know, I ride my bike along the river trail when I go to work every day. So it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's my air conditioning on hot days. I stop and drink a beer and put my feet in the water on my way home. So it's a huge part of my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody. What about you, Carol? How's the Poudre important to you?
That's an awesome testimonial, Cody. You're a good poster child for the Poudre. I also grew up playing on that river, and I'm about 1,000 years older than Cody. So, but I was not born in Colorado, but I moved here when I was 8, and our family has a small cabin on the South Fork of the Poudre. So we'll have to go fishing sometime, Cody. And that time spent on that river is what really first introduced me to the whole idea of nature and you know, spending time with my grandfather on the Poudre is what what first introduced me to the idea that resources are finite and that we need to take care of them. And then of course, I'll talk in a minute about how much a part of Fort Collins life it is and beer life it is, but it's integral to everything. And actually it's the reason we're all here in the first place, right?
I would agree with that. Thank you, Carol. Karla, do you want to chime in?
For sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having Odell as a part of this panel today. I think that just having the presence of the river so close to the breweries has been just hugely impactful. You actually get to see the place where the water comes from that goes into our beer. It's pretty special, and I think that we definitely revere it. We're very grateful that we have an amazing city that understands the importance of keeping it clean. I think over at Odell, we are hugely grateful for the resources around us.
Excellent. Thank you all. This question's for Carol. You kind of touched on this, but how's the Poudre River, do you think, important to the culture of our city here in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado? Beer culture in particular. How does the Poudre River affect that? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh my gosh, that's the first time in like 3 weeks that I did that. I was going for a new record. It's like the little OSHA sign, how many days without an accident. Oh, blew it. Yeah, of course, it's the most vital resource for all life, right? And it's the reason that there was ever a settlement here. It's the reason that our ag history is so prominent here. I think the ag influence on Fort Collins and on Northern Colorado is a really beautiful part of our culture, and hopefully keeps us tied to our roots in the truest sense of that word. It's very difficult to live here, even in this fun and fine city that's sort of ever more cosmopolitan, without understanding where your food's coming from and understanding the need for water and sunshine and the danger of hail, etc. And I love that about Fort Collins. And then for beer in particular, I mean, I hesitate to say this because I know that you can chemically recreate a certain type of water from anywhere in the world, anywhere else in the world. I know that that is technically possible, but I do think it's a really wonderful and intangible asset to our beer culture here, that we are a part of a relatively small watershed, and we're very high up in that watershed. We are the first. There is no treatment before our Fort Collins and Soldier Canyon treatment facilities, no major infrastructure upstream of us in the watershed. So it gives I mean, we use the water here straight out of the tap. We don't have a filtration system. I know that might be a little shocking to the larger breweries on the call, but it is amazing quality water for our product, and you can decorate it in a lot of different ways, and it never does any harm to the style of beer that you're trying to achieve. So it's a fantastic benefit that most brewers around the U.S. and around the world don't have, to be a part of a watershed like this. Of course, the fires in the watersheds I'm sorry about the forklift noise in the background. We're doing that just to seem authentic here. Both of our watersheds burned. Of course, the Colorado Big Thompson Project water is falling now on some burned land, and that obviously the water coming down the Poudre is running off of a lot of burned land. So that's a concern for all of us, and for the utilities who are doing a fair amount of work trying to make sure that that we don't notice a quality difference as consumers. And then of course the culture that it brings, the recreational culture that it provides, and the people that it draws here because of that recreational culture are just the best kind of people. So it has that's another immeasurable influence that the Poudre has on Northern Colorado life and the people we work with. Yeah, it's pretty deep.
Great,
Pretty
thank
deep
you, Karla.
impact for such a shallow river.
That's a great way to put it. Cody, as a brewer, I'm gonna throw a few brewing questions over to you. A lot of us, we drink a lot of beer, but we aren't as familiar with the process of brewing, and in particular, how water is used throughout the brewing process. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you guys use water throughout the process and what the most water intensive part of brewing is?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Carol mentioned, like the key part, the most important water we use is the water that actually goes into the product. And we are incredibly lucky to have the water source that we have here. And it's this very nice, soft water. It's very easy to work with as a brewer. It's kind of a nice neutral palate for it. And you think about like here in Northern Colorado, you know, we don't really grow a lot of barley. We don't really grow a lot of hops, but like this is our ingredient. This is like the terroir of beer in Northern Colorado, sure is our water. And that's why I think that it's no coincidence that that's why we have so many amazing breweries in Northern Colorado. You know, like we're kind of like one of the best places in the whole world to find beer in this tight little geographic area. And it's all because of our water. So the water that comes in is very important. And Carol mentioned earlier that we get it straight out of the tap. We're not much different at New Belgium. We do a little heat treatment on the way in, and that's about it. There's not like, we don't do a lot of clarification or filtration or anything like that. So it more or less comes directly out of the tap and goes into our mash tuns. And so that's key for us, that it stay clean and it be, you know, in good shape for all of those reasons. She did mention a little bit about how you can recreate water styles, but like, you can't do that if you don't have a good water source to start with. And so that's what we have, and that's why it's so important. That's what gives our beer so diverse. So the water that goes into our beer is far and away the most important water that we use. However, it's not where we use the most water. We use a lot of water in cleaning and moving beer around and things like that. So it's actually, you know, 3 to 1 about is what we use for our water ratio. So that means that there's about, for every pint of beer, there's about a pint of water in there, about, you know, like minus 5%. And we use that other bit in cleaning and movements and things like that. And so beers, it's incredibly important to be a sanitary process. So there's a lot of cleaning that goes involved with it. So, and that's going to be true for a lot of other manufacturing things too. I know we're here to talk about beer, but it's going to be the same for, you know, Noosa, one of our great manufacturing facilities right on the Poudre, basically. Like they use a ton of water. Anything that needs to be sterile or sanitary is going to use a bunch of water. One of the struggles we've seen in New Belgium is as we've moved to more hoppy beers, that actually takes a little bit more water because there's like an additional step involved, the dry hopping process. That involves cleaning and moving and things like that. So that's one of the things we've been cognizant about as we go forward, and all of those things. But so yeah, to sum it up, you know, the water that goes in is hypercritical, but we actually use more water in cleaning and making sure that the facility is sanitary.
Beautiful, thank you. So how do large wildfires like the High Park and historic Cameron Peak Fire of 2020, how do those affect the brewing process? Are there things that you guys have to do to mitigate any issues?
So we've been lucky. The city of Fort Collins has done a really good job of managing the water. And we've seen in the past where, you know, if we get those smoky characteristics that come into the water that we're getting, there is nothing we can do about it. We would have to bring in a filtration system that we don't own and we would not be able to get. So it would essentially shut us down if we started to get a lot of those smoky characteristics in beer. And these characteristics are really, really powerful and they're really difficult to remove. Generally, we use a lot of, we use boiling that can clean up a lot of water things. You can't do that with these smoky characteristics. They actually get stronger as you boil them. So again, we're really, really dependent on the city to do that. Luckily, the city has taken care of it so far and we haven't had those issues, but it could be absolutely critical. And you are seeing that in other places, like we've been lucky here, but places in California, things like that, where they are getting put on water restrictions and they're having to shut down breweries because of it for short periods of time. So again, we've been really lucky that hasn't happened here. And I wish I had a better answer for you because it hasn't affected us yet, but if it does, it will be absolutely critical.
Great. And you all actually recently brewed a beer that did have purposefully had some of those characteristics to bring awareness to these issues. Can you tell us a little bit about that beer?
Yeah, sure. It was a total stunt. So we were trying to look at project the effects of global warming onto a lot of elements of beer, including like the raw materials, and the water was another one. So we did not actually use smoky water for it. We used like some smoky malt to mimic that. We thought, the point was more important than me going and like fishing smoky water out of the river, which would have other issues. But we also tried to show the effects on other elements of our supply chain, including the agricultural things. So we talked a lot about if they had, droughts and extreme weather events had catastrophic effects on crops or entire crop years, moving to like more shelf stable extract sources and hop sources and things like that. And so all of those are made for a pretty terrible beer. So I think it got the point across, and that we showed that, global warming is not going to be good for beer.
Can I interject for a second and just say that when Cody says that they use 3-to-1 ratio of water to beer, that is amazing. I know, Odell, your numbers are good too, but that is amazing. The average in the US for brewers is somewhere between 7 and 8 gallons to 1. And it's not uncommon for it to be 13, 14, 15. And New Belgium has done incredible work that we all benefit from here because they share that information so readily with paring that down. That's one of the many sustainability initiatives that they have worked hard on and share. But anyway, so 3-to-1 is, you toss that off, Cody, like that's everybody, but like I know that we're at 7-to-1, and the only reason we're at 7-to-1 is working on some information that Matt Bailey over at Odell gave us and Katie Wallace gave us. So thank you guys.
And believe it or not, those numbers, even the 13-to-1, like in the IBD, they talk about some historical numbers. IBD is the Institute of Brewing and Distilling, which they're like a big educational source in brewing. But some of their old numbers, because they've been around forever, were like triple digits, 100-to-1. Like it's shocking how much water breweries used to use not that long ago, because it was just an unconstrained resource and they can use as much as they wanted. So being cognizant of it and being protective of it is very important. And I think that there are so many people that, and you guys' willingness to listen and be cognizant of that is so huge. And we appreciate all that you guys do for everything over Course and Brewing.
Yeah, no, that's a great segue, Carol, into this question I have for Karla about what steps the breweries are taking to address watershed health and watershed quality and conservation within the Poudre River watershed. I mean, you guys have all been so actively involved through Brew Water and your individual efforts in each of your breweries. But Karla, if you can talk to us a little bit about some of those things Odell's doing and then Brew Water as well.
Sure. Like Carol was saying, we're super fortunate to have people like Matt Bailey on staff and that are just constantly paying attention to what's going on in the brew house and the efficacy of machinery and little ways that we can save, big ways that we can save. Matt put a $3,000 recirc pump on our package line that saved us 9 million gallons of water a year, just right out of the gate. It's little things like that seem like they don't make a huge impact, but over time they do. And I think that that's how some larger brewers even have done an amazing job of minimizing their usage. For us, it's definitely been an act of passion. It's something that we all feel really strongly about. And for some of our neighbors like Anheuser-Busch, I think that they're driven by the bottom line. I honestly don't think that either thing matters as long as you're doing the right thing. So like Carol was saying about, all of us getting together in groups like Brew Water and sharing information, the folks at Anheuser-Busch have been really generous and friendly and shared a lot of info with us as well. And Matt actually came to us from AV. So I definitely, I have a lot of gratitude for the work that they've done and the brilliant minds that we've gleaned from them. So, I do think that it's just sort of company-wide. Everyone feels like it's our duty to make a difference. Carol was just talking about the other day that she had a conversation with Odell at a BA meeting, and Wynn was like, I think this just should be the price to play. And I think that she's right. In a perfect world, and hopefully we'll all get there someday. And it's really encouraging to see everyone making these strides. And I think that was sort of the impetus of Brew Water. It was, we've been at it for a while. We've been trying to do as much as we can and working towards some pretty lofty goals, and we're happy to carry everyone along with us. And so I think that that's where we kind of all came together with Brew Water. Now that actually evolved from Colorado Water Trust a campaign that they were working on to remove the Josh Ames Dam, and they needed a lot of money to do it. And we were really interested and wanted to help them increase the flows of the Poudre through the city, but we couldn't afford to do it on our own. And so they had approached New Belgium as well. And we realized that if we got to the same table and all came together and we brought everyone on board, that we had a lot more power to make a difference. And so Brew Water was born over that project, and it was really exciting. And I think that we realized that we needed to continue that collaborative work and continue to get together. It's been really inspiring. I've learned a ton. I know more about our watershed than I ever have or thought I would. It was fascinating. I think that Cody touched on a little bit that we haven't ever really had to deal with smoky water from our water source. The city's also been extremely fortunate that we've been able to switch over to the Big Thompson project and pull water from Horsetooth when the Poudre ran really ashy and sooty. And so we put less pressure on our the city utilities by switching over. But this year, following the Cameron Peak fire and the East Troublesome, we may not be able to have that luxury. And so it's going to be really interesting, I think, as we have some larger, sort of going into monsoon season here, and we have some larger precipitation events, what happens and how the city's going to deal. We may have to come together and again, as Brew Water or as a group, and who knows? I mean, we may have to make some moves. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Or like Cody said, we'll all just be serving Rausch beer. I'm not a huge fan, so I hope that that's not the case. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you. And Carol, this is for you. When your customers take a sip of a Horse and Dragon beer, what do you want them to consider about our local watershed, our local Poudre River?
I'm hyper aware that this is a luxury product, and that when when we come to a water shortage, there are plenty of reasons to say that that it's not a vital product. But I do hope that our consumers feel like craft beer is a vital part of Northern Colorado, and I think it does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of bringing people together, getting people to talk through problems. I know all of the breweries on this call do a lot with nonprofits and trying to support the really good work that they do within our community. So I sure hope that when consumers take a sip of our beer, somewhere underlying all the obvious, that hopefully it's delicious and it goes well with whatever food or people they're enjoying, that they also feel like we are producing it responsibly and that we're trying to take care of the environment that makes it possible for us to brew here.
Yeah, I have to say, as someone who works for a nonprofit, I just can't thank you guys enough for how much you support CPRW and so many other nonprofits in this community. You guys really, all of you, you walk the talk, and it's pretty inspiring, and we just want to thank you guys for all your support. So we really appreciate all of that. Karla, how can the public get involved in some watershed protection efforts? Are you guys, do you guys have projects that you are supporting right now, or do you have suggestions for folks that are listening?
We're consistently doing cleanups along the Poudre. We've adopted a part of the Poudre Trail right by the brewery. So you'll find us on Saturday and Sunday mornings to park at the brewery and walk over with us and fill some bags with trash. I think that that's a super low hanging fruit. We're working with WRV and PWV this fall. I'm hoping, Megan, that you and Hallie and some of your team get out there with us too, but we're going to head up the Poudre Canyon and do some work on some of the trails that have been affected. I would love to get some overnights up there. It's a couple-hour drive to where some of the trails have been really heavily impacted, and so, you know, I'm hoping to open up some of those opportunities to fans and Odell outreach participants. So I would say keep watching our Facebook and Instagram locations for those opportunities. We'll have some sign up availability into like late September, early October. And of course, we'll be watching the weather big time. So yeah, we will have opportunities for folks to join us, which is always it's a great experience to get out and actually get your hands dirty. We're also, I wanted to mention that Horse and Dragon brewed a beer with Tim O'Hara and Ashes to Art, and they raised money for Poudre Valley Fire Department and Wrist Canyon Fire Department, which I just found extraordinary. We wanted to help them with the catalog that Tim is hoping to print with all the pieces of art listed in it. So I hope we haven't missed the boat to help with that project, but Carol and Tim and the folks at Horse and Dragon are just, you guys are always doing such amazing stuff. And I just think that was the coolest project. And Carol, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if all those pieces of art have been sold, or are there still some available?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
My computer is like all frozen. I was just trying to Google Wildlands Restoration Volunteers to drop it in the chat, and now I can't get back to the Zoom. So I hope you can see and hear me.
Yeah.
But Karla was referencing WRV for volunteer opportunities. They are doing a ton of work in the burn area, and there just are not enough people. So if you are willing to go and train with them and volunteer, that's a fantastic way, I think, to contribute. And you don't have to be a part of a brewery team or anything. You can just sign up yourself. So it's Wildlands Restoration Volunteers, and I can see their page, but I can't click on anything.
Laura put it in the chat, Carol.
What's that?
Laura was able to put it in the chat.
Good. And the Ashes to Art project, they had an auction for all they had works of art. What Tim did was collect some charcoal from the burn area and then send it to artists all over the world. I think he had 3 non-US participants, and then all 50 states were represented, a bunch of artists from Colorado, and they all used some of the charcoal in their art in one way or another. And so some people drew or painted with it, which was beautiful. And then some people did things like a woman made a bowl with like an inlay, and the inlay was all the charcoal. I'm trying to think of other really, pieces of jewelry. Anyway, it was amazing. So all of that sold during the auction. But Tim, who is a professional photographer, took photos of each of the works of art. And this is the book that hopefully Odell or independent donors will help him to produce. So people, and the money from the sales of that book would also go to support the 2 volunteer fire departments that worked on the Cameron Peak fire. So just one way that Tim O'Hara and his partner in crime on that project, whose name is escaping me at the moment, and I can't look up on my computer.
I don't remember her name either, but I just thought it was such a creative way to help our watershed and our fire departments to be able to fight these wildfires, because we know we haven't seen the last of them either. I feel like CPRW is being so cognizant of the fact that we can't just mitigate what's happened. We have to actually be ready and, sort of looking to the future and understanding what we have coming down the pike. I mean, we can't possibly predict the future, but we absolutely know that, we haven't seen the last of this. And so I think that, I don't know, I just wanted to throw Ashes to Art in there, because I think it's going to take all of us being really creative and really innovative, just like we are with our beers, to be able to make that difference moving forward.
And I think it's a cool example of this sort of global understanding of our little watershed, and the way that the Poudre can move people from all over, and this community, I think, is relatively unique in that regard. I'm sorry I can't mute.
No, I'm so glad you guys brought that project up. I think it's a beautiful way to bring some hope after a natural, call it a disaster, like the Cameron Peak fire. It's a really great project for a great cause. Cody, this is a little off topic of beer, but can you tell us a little bit, since you're an avid fly fisherman, what you have noticed with post-fire impacts to the fisheries?
It's been slow. The water's been all over the place, and I don't know enough about how that's controlled. So this week it's been better. I did good yesterday, but like it's been terrible some days. Like a week ago Saturday, it was awful. We went to the river and like it looked like it was completely black. You know what I mean? And that's always like I'm no like biologist by any means, but I was very concerned for the fish at that point, but they seem to have made it through. And I guess, one thing to think about with the fisheries is that forest fires are natural. These populations have seen things like this in the past. So it's probably not great for them, but they're also maybe a little bit more resilient than you might think. But I don't think they could survive too much of that. We'll put it that way. Like it was so bad. We didn't even string up. We just sat on the shore and drank beer and sadly talked about if we were going to be fishing at all this season.
Yeah. Great. So those are the questions I had for you all. I'd love to open it up to everyone else that's on the call and see if any other folks have questions for our brewers and brewery owners. And yeah, I'll open it up from here. And you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask, or you can put them in the chat.
I have a question that isn't necessarily directly related to the river, but how do you feel where everybody's doing coming out of kind of the height of the pandemic? So with tasting rooms open or breweries open, kind of where are you guys all at with that?
And we're not yet back to we're maybe back to about 2017 or 2018 sales for us. And actually Tim and I both just came down with COVID after being fully vaccinated. So it was a little bit of a warning that we're not quite out of the woods yet. And that, there's some concern there that consumer confidence may take another hit here if that happens to a bunch of people. But it sure is 1,000 times better to see smiling faces enjoying a beer together in the open this year than how it was last year.
In New Belgium, we've been very conservative with how we reopen it. So like we still have very limited inside. In fact, they just opened that up recently and it was all outside. And we're getting back to where we'll allow more in. Again, New Belgium was very conservative with it. And that is in part because our business model is we sell, in a lot of chain and grocery. So we have a lot more packaged product. And so our tasting room isn't as big a part of our business as it might be for a lot of other breweries. And so the thing with that is we didn't want to get our production staff sick because if that would have shut down our production team, then the whole machine goes down. So that's why we took an extra conservative approach with it. But we are starting to loosen up now. And to Carol's point, like, it's just amazing to like go and actually see humans hanging out, drinking beer and smiling. It's like, it's awesome. I didn't even realize how much I missed it until I saw it again.
I'm right there with you guys. It's been amazing to have the tap room open in any capacity. We kind of eased our way back into it, and we're full bore. We've opened up a whole new location at Sloan's Lake. I found out my sweet friend Sarah Nelson is on this call from Protect Our Rivers. Just thrilled to be out in the field too, and working with partners like CPRW and protect our rivers. I feel like that's been sort of that's been a highlight for me, is just getting out in groups and doing work that feels even more important, and getting us out of our homes and taking care of the environment and climate that we love. Uh, and of course, being outside just feels safer and better. And so all that's been great. And Carol, I'm sorry about your bout, but I'm glad that you're feeling better. And I'm glad Horse and Dragon's open. I can't wait to get over there and see you guys and have a beer here soon.
Anytime. Love to buy you a beer.
I'm overdue for a sad panda.
Yeah.
What did you say, Cody?
I'm overdue for a sad panda.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there in the audience? And I think Laura's looking at Facebook as well, if anyone wants to ask any questions from that side of the world, that side of the internet. No other questions.
Well, we have one other one. So really just looking at kind of what the future is like in the beer industry. You know, is there anything, you know, innovative that you can share with us that's not top secret information, but what do you see happening, you know, 5-10 years down the road?
I think this, hopefully you guys have some uplifting stuff to share. I was on a sustainability subcommittee meeting this morning with the Brewers Association. The Brewers Association finally did come out with a statement, a position statement on climate change, which, you know, is long overdue, I think. But climate change is actually threatening our supply chains pretty significantly. And so that over the next 10 years may cause some pretty serious shifts in the industry, I think. So anyway, anything you guys can do to lobby your representatives to take firm action would help beer down the road.
We're looking at a pretty severe malt crisis. Droughts causing farmers to change what they're growing. That's real already. I don't think that that's too far down the road that we're going to start seeing a pinch on what's available to us, which is it's wild. And then, Cody, I don't know if you can speak to that from New Belgium from like a much broader sense. It might even be affecting you guys faster because of the amount of malt that you guys are buying.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything yet, but you're absolutely right. It's probably just around the corner. And it's funny because malt is sort of that forgotten ingredient a lot of times when it comes to beer now. You know, so many beers are like hops and even fruit driven and things like that. But no, we're hearing the same things and we have equal concerns. I mean, this would talk about being catastrophic, like no malt, there is no beer.
The numbers this morning were that 89% of the malt grown in the US 89% of the areas that grow malt in the US are in drought right now. And that this year's crop is anticipated to yield a third less than was budgeted. So that's this year, you know. Of course, drought can change and those conditions can change. Probably not, obviously not for this year, but by next year. But in general, the trend is not excellent. But that's not, we can't end on that note. We gotta, like, what's coming down the pike that's like super innovative and awesome?
I was gonna say, tell us something that you're hopeful for in the future as we move forward. You know, locally here in our Poudre River watershed and within the brewing process as well. I think those are all important as well as we all kind of struggle through this past year and a half.
COVID was actually really positive in some ways. I think that it's shown a light on what happened when people stayed home. You know, to the environment at large, it's shown a light on industry and what happens to the environment when we put all this pressure on it, and then alleviate it and then put it back on. I'm encouraged that our governor's office is doing some really serious work and getting strategies in place to ensure that companies like ours can make more immediate change. They've got different support groups that are informing the governor's office about stakeholders like brewers and what we'll need in the future and where money should be invested. That's really encouraging to me. I think that people do understand that we need quick and effective change. Yeah, so that's my positive note.
Thank you, Karla.
It's amazing to see, if you guys have the chance to get up the Poudre Canyon, it's amazing to see the areas that are growing back, and particularly the grasses and the wildflowers that have already, the seed bank wasn't affected in a lot of the areas of the fire. So that's awesome. And that's the start of a whole new forest. So that bodes well for the long-term future of our watershed. It's just going to take a little while to get through the short-term effects here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the regrowth up. It's been so beautiful to see some of these meadows that were just completely torched. I mean, you can hike through them now and they're just beautiful green open meadows. I mean, that's really hopeful for the future of our forests. And I think it was mentioned earlier, we do live in, forests that are, these are forests that have burned. They've always burned. So seeing that regrowth is really hopeful, and it's beautiful as well. Cody, hope for the future?
I think that one thing that I've seen is how receptive people have been to like these topics now. I feel like maybe now it's like, now that you can see some of the tangible effects of it and there's more and more awareness around it, you're seeing people like move and come together and start to act. So maybe that was just what we all needed, was to like see it. It stopped being a headline and started being something we were seeing with our own eyes. And so maybe that is the beginning of the change that hopefully, makes all this better in the end. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, any other questions out there, Laura?
I don't see any, but I think you guys really did a great job, and I think if I'll just, as a person that starts the Zoom call, I'll just add one extra note in. I think everybody is spot on about as difficult as the last year and a half was. It started conversations that we need to have, right? And so being able to be more vulnerable, bring people together, talk about the things that really matter is what's going to create those solutions, like, figuring out how we can make sure we have enough malt in the future so that we can have this wonderful craft beer that you guys all provide. So I appreciate you all and really just enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Laura.
Yes, thank you, Laura, for helping us organize the Poudre River Fest. It's such a fun celebration and educational opportunity for Northern Colorado to bring people together around the Poudre River, which I think we all just are absolutely in love with. It's not hard to love the Poudre River. So thank you to our panelists. You guys are wonderful. We hope everyone out there that's listening is inspired to get involved. I think most importantly, educate yourself on where our water comes from, and then see how you can become involved either as a volunteer or a donor, or just talking to your friends and family about the importance of the health of our watershed. And of course, I hope you're all inspired to drink really good beer. So get out there and support your local brewers. Just to give you all a heads up, our last Poudre River Fest day is August 21st, and it's an in-person celebration at New Belgium Brewing. It'll be from, I believe, 1 to 6 p.m. We're going to have live music. We have a couple bands coming to play. We have educational booths and activities, a bunch of vendor booths. So it's going to be a really fun little mini festival to kind of wrap up our summer of Poudre River Fest days. And I hope that you guys will check out more information about that at poudreriverfest.org. I think that's all I had. Laura, if you want to add anything as we kind of conclude, but thank you all for being here.
That was it. That was a great closing, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.